In a few easy steps, you can improve your Ruger 1022's trigger with the Brownells Do-It-Yourself 1022 Trigger Upgrade Kit. With the new parts installed, you can expect a 2 3/4 pound trigger pull. You can also adjust and lock in sear engagement to get exactly the trigger break you want. You're going to need the tools contained in the Brownells Power Custom 1022 Upgrade Kit, and installation should take about 20 minutes or less. To get started, make sure the rifle is completely unloaded with the magazine removed. It's a good idea to wear safety glasses when doing any work on firearms. With a proper size screwdriver, loosen the stock screws. Now so it'll clear the stock, center the safety in the middle of the trigger guard housing and remove the stock. Lay the action on the bench block, and with the 3/32 punch and the nylon brass hammer, tap out the 2 trigger guard assembly cross pins and remove the trigger guard assembly. It should come right out. Set the upper receiver with the barrel aside. Next, remove the hammer spring. Release the hammer by squeezing the trigger and gently allow it to pivot forward. Make sure that the safety is in the fire position. It still may be between the fire and the safe position. Now push or tap out the hammer pin and remove the hammer along with 2 hammer bushings and the bolt lock spring. Remove the old hammer and hammer spring and replace them with the new Power Custom hammer, hammer spring, and hammer shims. Remove the trigger pivot pin, and this allows the trigger assembly to come out of the housing. Remove the trigger assembly and watch for the trigger reset pin behind the trigger because it could shoot out or fall out. Identify the trigger plunger and plunger spring and remove them by simply pulling them out and replace them with the Power Custom parts, inserting them back into the housing. Turning to the trigger assembly, remove the pivot pins and take and save the old sear and springs. Install the Power Custom sear, springs, and shims. On the newer 1022 triggers that have a polymer trigger housing, the shims are not used. When you're ready to put the pivot pin back in, then install the temporary slave pin to keep everything together. When you're ready, use the actual pivot pin to push the slave pin out of the way. The pin will then lock into position. Then reinstall the trigger assembly into the housing.
Install the replacement hammer spring onto the hammer spring strut. Place the strut against your bench and pull the hammer spring down to release tension against the slotted keeper cap. Replace the hammer spring and pull down the spring to install the keeper back onto the strut. Reinstall the hammer assembly and hammer spring back into the trigger housing.
Now you can adjust the sear engagement screw with a supplied wrench. To do this, you will need to remove the sear, adjust it, and reinstall it, and test how much pre-travel has been taken out of the trigger. When you squeeze the trigger, make sure you keep your thumb over the hammer to prevent damage to it. As you adjust the sear, you'll need to function check to ensure that you haven't adjusted it too much. Function check by cocking the hammer back and placing the safety on safe. With your thumb protecting the hammer, squeeze the trigger and the hammer should not move. Now with the safety off and your thumb protecting the hammer, squeeze the trigger and the hammer should move. Now once you're satisfied with the trigger pull and the function checks, you can use red Loctite to set the adjustment screw.
Install the trigger assembly back into the upper receiver and drive your cross pins back into the receiver. Make sure you place your safety halfway between safe and fire to install everything back into the stock. Tighten down your stock screw and replace your barrel band if you have one. Dry firing the 1022 won't damage it or peen over the firing pin.
Finally, check the engagement of the sear again by tapping the butt of your unloaded rifle against your bench or floor.
With the safety off, the firing pin shouldn't move until you squeeze the trigger. With the safety on, the firing pin shouldn't move when the stock is struck. Confirm that the firing pin is held in place again by tapping your stock against the bench. Now switch the safety back to fire and the firing pin should still be held in place by the sear and not move.